Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, sometimes it's half the battle, and if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals. We pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because let's face it, you're listening right now. Subscribe, hit that subscribe button, give us the old 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're pretty much available everywhere, places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and plus we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe as well, we'd really appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook, we're on the Twitter, we're on the Instagram, and we're on the TikTok, and we're on the Letterboxd for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at intheseats.ca for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because, you know, if we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please pay us a visit. On this episode, we got a good one. We're a little late on this one, but it is a good one. We had the unique pleasure of sitting down with the one and only writer-director Kelly Reichardt to talk about her new film, Showing Up, which stars the incomparable Michelle Williams, Chau, and a few other people. And it's the story of a sculptor preparing to open a new show amidst the daily drama of friends, family, and just life in general. It's really an interesting portrait of the working class creative, as it were, and it just kind of shows the struggles therein. And I mean, it's, again, it is a Kelly Reichardt film, so it is a very well-acted one with some, like I said, some great performances from Michelle Williams and Chau. But we got the unique pleasure of sitting down and talking with Kelly when she came into town to open the movie a couple of weeks back. And we asked about, you know, a whole bunch of things, the origins of the story, you know, her past work, and, you know, had a good laugh over her desire to go into everyone's houses and change their TV settings when they watch some of her back catalog on DVD and Blu-ray. But when you get a chance, go to the theater, support cinema, go watch Showing Up. But first, enjoy our talk with writer-director Kelly Reichardt, because between you and me, it is a darn good one. Thank you so much for the time today. I do really appreciate it. I'm such a big admirer of your work, and I mean, and congrats on the movie. I love it.
Thanks. Oh, thanks.
Now, I mean, walk me through, I guess, the origin of the story on your end.
The origin of the story, well, you Canadians will like to hear that I was telling the story last night that in the very, very beginning, Jonathan Raymond, my writing partner, and I thought we would make a film about a very obscure painter who had become a landlord at a point, and we wanted to focus on this decade of her life where, you know, we weren't going to cover a whole decade, but this time in her life where she became a landlord in hopes it would give her more time to paint, but she was kind of overwhelmed by her tenants. And so anyway, of course, this is Emily Carr, who no one knows in the States, and so we came here thinking she was an obscure painter, and then we realized our folly, that and we went back home. But that is really how far out of a place we started at from where we ended up, back in our own neighborhood, you know, shooting like blocks away from where I live, in our own kind of scene that we know, and we definitely were you know, we wanted to make film about people that are compelled to be at their work table every day and make things, even if they don't necessarily have a built-in audience, or if that audience is your community and your family, and how you balance that with all the other things life requires.
For sure. I mean, there, at least for me, as a sort of a working class creative, like I appreciated sort of, I guess, you know, I don't want to say malaise, but I mean just sort of the stress of sort of the day-to-day of it, of, you know, trying to sort of focus on your creation and what you're trying to do, but also how life kind of has a you know, a way of intersecting into all that. And I mean, for you, like, to, as a storyteller, like, is that the kind of thing that kind of draws you in? Because I mean, again, this is one of those stories. It's not kind of loud or flashy, but when you really get down to the core of the characters, like, at least from my perspective, like, I saw myself in Michelle, like, quite a bit.
Yeah. Sure, I could identify with uh, both of Joe. Michelle Williams plays, I should say, the character Lizzie, and her friend is Joe, who's played by Chau, and I could relate to both of them.
Yeah.
I found them both really relatable, and they're all, just in the writing process, really just kind of salads of many people we know in our own experiences, and just people you read about, and just reading about other artists and how they live, but also just from being, I guess, our age and knowing a lot of people who, do work every day, and also a kind of tactile work that's really different than filmmaking, where you really, are alone in a studio or with your assistant in the studio, and you have your hands in the muckety muck of it, and yeah.
Now, I mean, obviously, your collaborations with Michelle are very well known, but I mean, someone like James is in here. James LeGros is in this film as well. Like, for you, when you're putting together a film, is there a certain degree of comfort to have sort of familiar faces to sort of lean on, especially during the process of filmmaking? Because I mean, again, you're shooting on a budget, obviously, but filmmaking is a stressful process.
Yeah. These are not big budget movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice knowing. There's less of a surprise, but I'm always constantly surprised by what like LeGros can do and what Michelle can do, but yeah, it's nice to work with people you've worked with before, and not necessarily like back to back, because like it's nice to go off and do things, or have them doing things that and then you get back together again and sort of reap the rewards of whatever else they've been up to, and also like after you've made a film with someone and you've edited them, it's nice to it's a give and take. Like it's reassuring, and it's easier probably, and I don't know, Michelle, when I've always had good experiences working with Michelle, and then I saw her in Fosse Vernon, and I was like, oh my God, like, I gotta get something going with Michelle again, because she's like really taking it to new places, and so yeah, it's great. I mean, knock on wood, yeah.
When you're looking for people and looking for actors, because I mean, when I see someone like Andre Benjamin in here, who's obviously, people know him for his music, but I mean, he's great in the film. And then I see somebody like Judd Hirsch, who again, I wouldn't necessarily expect. Like, when you're reaching out to people, like, are you writing roles specifically for people, or is it just a question of trying to find the right person at the right moment?
It's trying to find the right person for the film. I mean, we cast the art first, and Cynthia Latte's work, who's the work of Lizzie, we wrote the script with her artwork in mind, and I had made a short film of Michelle Segre, just filming in her studio. I made just shot some films of some artists working in their studio for the Pompidou a few years ago, and so and it was like killing two birds with one stone, because I wanted to figure out how to shoot people working, and I loved Michelle's work, and got to know her. Chris Blauvelt and I, hanging around her studio and filming her, and her work was just right for Joe, because it was took up a lot of space, sort of took a lot of physical energy to make, and was bright and really a good contrast to what Michelle's art would be like. So really all the art got cast before even the visiting artist who with the glass work. That's the work of Jessica Jackson Hutchins, who I spent a lot of time at her studio, and I filmed her at her studio before, and I love her work. And her studio happens to be right near our camera house, and so I could go just get rejuvenated at, like, filmmaking is so laborious, and everything takes so long, and there's and where you go into Jessica's place and she's like, look what I made today, isn't it great? And you're like, geez, yeah. So but anyway, yeah, so that knowing what the art was had to come before knowing, and then I just like to think about real people. I was sort of there's so many artists to look at, and just the way they worked, and going back to Black Mountain College, which I love a lot of the images from that school and that time, and so yeah, a lot of Black Mountain College influences. And so for a while you're just like, oh, here's Eva Hess or Hannah Wilke or whoever it is, and then it was really an image of Lee Bonacue that someone gave me, one of our producers actually, and it would really help. She looked so much like Michelle. I was like, oh wow, look at this. And I don't know, it just helps. But I had Andre's picture on my wall for a long time. The casting director, Gail Keller, that I work with, I'm sure it must have come through her at some point. But I had him, somehow he was mixed on my wall with just a lot of makers, physical, that people I know that make work.
Yeah.
And he was just in his overalls, and in my mind he just became that character. And then fortunately he was game. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. And I mean, Judd and Miriam Plunkett were away. I talk about working with people again. I really wanted to work with John Magaro and Michelle. And I was like, how are they ever siblings? How can these two be siblings? And so that led to Judd and Marianne as parents.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Now, I mean, this is something I'm curious about, because I love that basically art is a character in this film. And especially with many, like this film as well, but also in many of your other films, you've never been a filmmaker who's been afraid to move away from someone. Like, you'll hold on the shot for like almost a little too long, almost to the point of uncomfortableness. But it allows us as the viewer to, at least from my perspective, to appreciate sort of the artistry of the image. Whereas conversely, when you look at some cinema today, I mean, I can go down the street and watch a movie and I'll be exhausted by the end of the trailers. You know what I mean? How important is sort of the artistry of the image to you when you're trying to build a story?
Well, that's the everything of it, right? You're building, it's a visual language, so you're, trying to tell a story visually. So that's the crux of it. But, I mean, it's funny because in the context of slow cinema, what has become considered slow cinema, what we're talking about of holding a shot to a point of uncomfortableness, we're really talking about 15 to 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And so anything over, we're used to cuts that are a half second.
Yeah.
And that's just commerce, I think. That's just people selling you stuff faster, and so the appetite and the rhythm, like our brains have gotten, but so in that speed, you really have to be sort of like pointedly showing somebody something if you're going to go that quickly. And as opposed to letting someone discover something in the frame. And time is really everything in filmmaking. How time moves between a cut, how a scene moves, it's everything. So if you want to if you want to experience someone's day or a moment of like a realization is happening within a shot, and you don't want to do it by like underscoring something with sound and cutting to a close-up.
Right.
You have to do it in there are other ways to get at it. But I don't know, I guess probably every filmmaker has their own rhythm, and yeah, I don't know. I like being able to discover things when I'm watching it, and I get sort of turned off in films when I'm just feel like I'm just constantly being showed stuff that I, pointed at what I need to look at and being told what's important. So it's just a different. There's different ways to.
Does that change your process? Because I look at sort of the
No, that is
landscape
my
today,
process.
just with like the demand for streaming and the demand for content.
But that doesn't have anything to do with my process. I mean, I've never have really, I don't know, I've never really, I can't, I'm sort of tuned out in a lot of ways. Not that, I don't look at things, but I don't watch a lot. I mean, I can, I don't know, I guess I wouldn't take in what's happening outside when I'm making my own work. I would just, it doesn't seem relevant necessarily. You're in, you can be enough in your own bubble and your own edit room to, for better or worse, be there with your own decision making and I mean, I love looking at all the things that. I mean, I liked filming all these things.
Yeah.
And so I like looking at them, and I spend a lot of time with them in the edit room looking at them over and over again, and I don't grow tired of them. So, I would feel safe that someone else might like to look at them also, at things also.
But it's so much of your filmmaking, like at least to me, it's about appreciating the moment. Because I can remember I could. Talk to somebody about Meeks, and somebody would be like, "Oh, well, half the movie's in the dark." It's like, no, you're not getting it. It's like you have to appreciate the moment.
They might, in their benefit, if they're watching the DVD, they might be right because the transfers, I have to say, are too dark, and there are times where I'm like, wow, that's just a black screen. But if you see it projected, there are a lot of nighttime scenes. But that was back in the day where you really had to fall on the sword for if you wanted something to look good in the theater versus
Right.
if you wanted it to how you wanted it to look on your DVD. So yeah, we mean to remix that. I mean, recolor time that for the DVD going in future times. Yeah. So, if you saw it projected, though.
I did.
Okay,
I
yeah.
did.
I mean, then I can't, then I don't want to, then, yeah, there's a lot of nighttime scenes, but I think I like that Chris Blauvelt shot them, and I thought he did a beautiful job with nighttime. And so, yeah, but for people watching it at home, they're not without their points.
So, is it encouraging for you to really just put a bow on this, that, your films can have this shelf life like they do with places like Criterion Collection and other places like that you've worked with before?
Is it what?
That your films
Yeah.
will have a shelf life like well beyond the theatrical run.
Well, yes, that's all great. Especially it'd be better if you could go into everyone's house and set up their television, get it out of the sports mode of, if everyone would turn down the sharpness.
Oh
on
God!
their-
Don't even get me started. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
No, but yeah, I love that people can. Yeah, that's fun that people can watch stuff at home or at the movies. Sure, but with Meeks, you really got to go to the. If it ever happened to be playing around and you were interested.
Well, I
it's
think for
like
all
a
your
nice
stuff,
film.
honestly,
Yeah.
you got to go
Yeah.
to the cinema. And
Yeah.
especially with this one, and I can't wait for more
Yeah.
people to see it. But honestly, thank you so much for the time today.
Yeah, thank you. All right, take it easy.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.